Come Lately show. This is Stefan, your patriot come lately, the voice of the Second American Revolution. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever or wherever you are listening. As someone who came to America to escape from the socialist nightmare, I am using this show to shake America awake. Join me in the next hour for constitutional conservative news and views, as well as the occasional guest. We have to rebuild that shining city on the hill by taking this great country back to the principles set forth by the founders.
And another good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever, whenever you're listening to this show. This is Stefan, your patriot come lately, British by birth and American by choice, welcoming you to episode 207 of the Patriot Come Lately talk show. Looking forward to this evening, lots of interesting stuff to talk about, lots of things going on in the world. But first of all, just a little comment. I was thinking about actually just yesterday, and this is to do with the war on women, or the perceived war on women. That the regressives always say that the right is waging this war on women, and yet it's the regressives who support Islamists, including these very extreme Islamists who hate and denigrate women in many different ways. And the thought that crossed my mind is that regressives are really like battered women. You know the story, battered women who just can't leave their abusive partner, and they get a place in a shelter or something, and then short time afterwards they leave the shelter and they go back to their abusive partner. They always think that if they're nice enough to them they can change them, but of course the abusive partner never does. Isn't that exactly the way the regressives are? Are they really as stupid as those abused women? I really think they are, to tell you the truth. Okay, folks, as I said, lots to talk about today, so let's get on, and I have something of great interest, and I'm very pleased to announce that the Patrick Come Lately show is now being broadcast over the AM airwaves. You can hear Patrick Come Lately on KTFL 1620 AM in the Phoenix, Arizona area. Now, this is actually part of the Red State Talk Radio feed that goes out over that channel. But as far as I know, Patrick Come Lately is actually broadcast round about 11 a.m. local time on a Sunday. And on top of that, it's also broadcast overnight in an indeterminate schedule, depending on Red State Talk Radio. As you know, last week I said that Red State Talk Radio was going to be ratcheting back on the 1 hour shows, the one a week show, and they would probably only get broadcast twice. So I hope that I will still fit into the correct slots for KTFL. But remember, if you want to hear more of Patrick Come Lately, you can always send an email to primo@redstatetalkradio.com and ask him nicely if he would consider putting Patrick Come Lately on more often than just twice a week. But anyway, it's exciting to have that affiliate to join the stable and to be on the terrestrial radio. So share that with your friends in Phoenix, and anybody in Phoenix. Let me know whether or not the signal comes across well, and also, of course, all the other good shows that you will be getting that come through on Red State Talk Radio. Like to say hi to the chat room. Rex Reapy has arrived there, my favorite author. And anybody else who's listening live, if you click at the bottom of the screen on the little green speech bubble there, you can join the chat room, put in your comments, quotes there. Be nice to hear from you, because as I've said before, I can't see how many live listeners I have. After the fact, I believe there's a number that I can see which supposedly tells me how many were, and I'm glad to say that number is actually climbing up a little bit above my average Blog Talk Radio number. But I would also say, folks, please do join me in the chat room. Let me know that you're there. It's nice to know that I'm not just talking into a black hole. Okay, next piece of news, which is not so much fun, but I do want to have a quick comment on it. And you might say, well, Stefan, you're going to be talking about a subject it's not really political. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We don't really know. Of course, I'm talking about the disappearance of the Malaysian Airways Flight 370 over Malaysia a number of days ago, and the disappearance, the literal disappearance. This thing has gone up in smoke. We don't know whether it's been sucked up into some big mothership somewhere and taken off into space, or whether it's landed in the jungle somewhere in the sea. All sorts of rumors flying around. So very strange situation. They had people on there with stolen passports, but now they seem to think that these people were not probably terrorists, but were people trying to escape from the Middle East and go to Europe for asylum. Maybe, maybe not. There are rumors which seem to be fairly strong, but they haven't been confirmed yet 100% by Malaysia, but very strong rumors that the plane was seen flying low over the west coast of Malaysia. Now, if you remember, it was taking off, it was going up to Beijing, so it actually took off from the middle of Malaysia. Kuala Lumpur is the capital there, and headed east. So it did a U-turn and then was heading west and was flying low over the coast, according to the latest rumors. Very, very strange. Very, unusual for them to turn around like that and not have any emergency calls. So there's all sorts of things that it could be. But, with having a father who was a pilot, I know a little bit about what goes on up there, and the fact that there was no message of any kind after they turned around is very, very strange. So either the cockpit door was open and the pilots incapacitated very, very quickly, or if it wasn't that, then maybe one of the pilots or two of the pilots did something. Who knows? Could be that. Did it really fly over the west coast? Would it be there? Was that this came from military sources and military radar? Was that true? Quite possible, because they couldn't find anything on the east coast side of Malaysia. So all in all, very, very strange. Right now, my money is on, well, don't want to point any fingers, but I would at least say, why are the press not asking more about the pilots? I think that's the main thing, because if they didn't send out a message, to me it indicates that somehow they are involved, because they would be the ones to send out the message. So they've either been prevented, or one of them prevented the other. Who knows? Anyway, time will tell. We may find out something one day. It'll take a long time probably, but I doubt that it can totally get lost in thin air. That's virtually impossible, but it can take a long, long time to find it. So our prayers should be with the people that are on board that aircraft, and there is still a small chance that they may have landed somewhere and may have come down safely, and that's been kind of corroborated by other rumors about cell phones not being turned off and still being on the network. Of course, you'd say, if that was true, why didn't they triangulate and find out where those cell phones were? So I don't give that much credence, but you never know. All in all, just a very strange story. Okay, folks, on to the next topic. And what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about a book that I've been reading. The book that I've been reading is a book called Lights Out by Mark Steyn. And those of you that listen to Mark Steyn, who sometimes appears on Rush Limbaugh and other radio programs, you know he's a very funny person. And he had a very interesting situation because he was writing articles in a Canadian magazine, and he got taken to court by Islamists. And basically he was writing nothing but the truth. But this was perceived as being racist. Now, up here in Canada, and I'm broadcasting still from Canada, up here in broadcast, they have human rights commissions, which are like courts that anybody who feels that they are offended can go and complain to, which is, of course, what some of these extreme Muslims immediately did, and said that this was racist and offensive, that Mark Steyn was telling the truth. Well, after a number of years of fighting these cases, as far as I know, they were all thrown out. But it's still very chilling that these people will do that and try and put the lid on things which are just the truth. And even though Mark Steyn won out, you can imagine the paper for which he's writing in the future is going to be a lot more careful about what kind of news, what kind of articles they publish, because if every article is going to result in this 4-year drawn-out battle in the courts, that costs a whole lot of money. So even though they may not have won, the Islamists are in danger of winning. So now, of course, I'm broadcasting from Canada, so maybe I have to be careful with what I say. But here's what I want to quote a little bit from Mark's book. I want to tell you about something because, number one, it matches with my particular situation of my British background coming to America, and it's also something frightening, but it is something that happened in the UK that he quoted, and it's very frightening, and I think you need to know about it. So he writes about the fact that in 2004, Britain's Serious Fraud Office, this is a part of the police that investigates serious frauds, launched an investigation into allegations that the arms manufacturer BAE, which is used to be British Aerospace, but then became BAE as they branched out into other industries, that they paid huge bribes to Saudi princes. Now, BAE does a lot of business with Saudi Arabia, so that is quite plausible. In December 2006, Prince Bandar, the head of the Saudi National Security Council, flew into London to see Tony Blair, who was Prime Minister at the time, and shortly thereafter the Prime Minister leaned on the Serious Fraud Office to shut down the fraud investigation. Now, the Prime Minister can't actually tell them to stop. He's not quite like King Barry. He doesn't have that power. But he did lean on them, apparently, and this is according to The Guardian, which is a very good left-wing newspaper in the UK, and he leaned on them to shut it down. So here's what came out of The Guardian. Apparently, Saudi Arabia's rulers threatened to make it easier for terrorists to attack London unless corruption investigations into their arms deals were halted. And these were according to documents that have been revealed to the court. Previously, secret files described how investigators were told they faced another 7/7 and the loss of British lives on British streets if they pressed with their inquiries. And remember, 7/7 for Britain is like the American 9/11. That's when the tube and the buses were blown up by jihadists. That's quite a threat from one friendly government to another. BAE was under investigation for, amongst other bribes, a secret payment of £1 billion. And it just happens to be been made to the head of the Saudi National Security. Yes, that's right, the same Prince Bandar who flew in and had a little chat with Tony Blair. So this is while he was the long-serving Saudi ambassador to the US and a big Washington insider, a pal of the Bushes, Colin Powell, and everybody else who mattered. Oh, you can just reek the corruption. When a company is willing to pay £1 billion, remember that's $2 billion, £1 billion, £2 billion, well, maybe $1.5 billion, but that much in bribes to one individual, it's difficult to know what humdrum restraint such as the law can do. The Saudis, who are chief exporters of an ideology, pledged to our destruction. Remember, the most extreme form of Islam is the Wahhabi sect, which comes from Saudi Arabia. They have pretty much bought up everyone in the Western world they need to. The right to be able to publish stories that depict Saudi Arabia in a negative light is fundamental to preserving our freedom. So isn't that, I mean, to me, that's horrendously frightening, the fact that a country and people who have an ideology that is so against us also wield such power over us. And that sort of says, what liberty do we actually have? No wonder King Barry was bowing to the Saudi king, because they have all that money. Just wonder how much of that actually flowed into his campaign coffers, much against the Federal Election Commission rules, against the law. But now we know why he bowed, because those people just have tremendous power. And that is really, really frightening. Well, so that perhaps runs into another piece of news that I wanted to talk about. And so let's go on to the next topic. The next topic is called Muslims Welcome Persecuted Christians or Not, and my comment on that is this the new USA? If you look at the figures, it seems the State Department has had a huge increase in the number of visas issued to Middle Eastern Muslims, supposedly on the grounds of giving them asylum. However, Christians who are being persecuted in many countries by Muslims, they are not getting more visa nor more asylum type visas. So Obama actually brought in large numbers of Somalis and plopped them in Minnesota. I wonder if that's is kind of to spite Michelle Bachmann for exposing the Muslim Brotherhood influence in his administration, in his regime. And, of course, also exposing the Muslim congressmen Ellison and Brennan, who are also supported by the Muslim Brotherhood. But there you are. So retribution, bring all these Somalis in, they'll become voters soon, and they can kick out Michelle Bachmann. The newspaper piece that I was reading said that in actual fact, for Pakistan is probably the worst place for Christians to live at this point, although Egypt is pretty bad as well. They are routinely accused of blasphemy against Islam. Entire Christian communities are sometimes attacked by mobs of angry radical Muslims. Politicians who stand up for civil liberties for Christians are assassinated, and last year they had a suicide bombing attack in a church in Peshawar, which left more than 80 Christians dead. So all over, these Christians are being persecuted, but the State Department is not giving them any visas to come in, and instead the Netherlands is now looking to give them a special status, Christians coming from Pakistan, so they get priority in asylum requests coming into the Netherlands. Okay, folks, it's time for the first commercial break. Have to stick to these more now that we're on KTFL, so I'll be back after these messages.
Are you paying too much for your car insurance policy? Have you shopped your current plan in the last year? If you haven't, then you probably are paying too much. You could save up to 40% on your current car insurance coverage just by making a free call right now. Doesn't it make good sense to pay less for something you have to pay for anyway? And car insurance is one of those things. You got to have car insurance, whether you have one car or 10 cars. So why not see if you can pay a lot less for it right now? One quick 3-minute call and you could save hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. We'll compare the leading car insurance companies and get you coverage that could save you up to 40% on your car insurance. Call now for a free quote. Call 800-603-9980. 800-603-9980. 800-603-9980. 800-603-9980. That's 800-603-9980.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich, working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare, having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network, you'll find hundreds of work-from-home opportunities that you can literally start today and be earning money as soon as next week. Go to freedom112.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss. Get out of the rat race. Work from home. Go to freedom112.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom112.com. Go to freedom112.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You be the boss. Go to freedom112.com.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And thank you for sticking with me through that break. Also want to welcome Paul to the chat room. As I said, if you're listening live, do let me know that you're there. It's nice to know I'm not talking into a black hole. And I would also like to say hi to our new listeners that may be listening via KTFL, 1620 AM, Phoenix, Arizona. Just a reminder for them, if you are interested in any of the products that are advertised on this show, if you use the 800 number in the commercial, then that does help support this show, and I'm appreciative for any support that you can give. And okay, so let's go on to a new topic, and I'd like to talk about some good news next. And the good news is that in the special election in Florida, my old home state, of course, regular listeners will know I recently moved back to Georgia, so it's not my home state anymore, but still a little bit of ties there, and not too far away from where I was living, Pinellas County, about 3/4 of an hour's drive away. They had a special election because Bill Young, the congressman there, had died. He was the 40-year incumbent in that seat. And, of course, recently Florida has been leaning left a lot more. And so the unsuccessful Democratic candidate for governor, Alex Sink, decided she would try and run for Congress there. And she was way ahead of the pack for a long time. Obviously, with all the name recognition, having tried to run for governor, everybody knew her. And all of her buddies were pumping millions of dollars into her campaign, because this was seen as a very critical one for the left. It's kind of a bellwether election, you know, with the midterms coming up, and it's and so people are really wondering what would happen. Well, her opponent ended up being David Jolly, who won the Republican primary. I'll talk a little bit more about his background. But David Jolly had little or no name recognition, and I mentioned him a few weeks ago and said, but in spite of that, he was quite close to Alex Sink in terms of polling numbers, which was kind of a surprise because he's not really that well known, and even though he had been working with Bill Young, but even so, he didn't have the same name recognition. So here we are, David Jolly campaigning against Alex Sink, and David Jolly did very much make his campaign based on Obamacare. The fact that Alex Sink had always been very positive and said Obamacare is a good thing, and he really based his campaign on that. Well, the good news is, folks, he won. He actually beat Alex Sink by 1 or 2 percentage points. Still fairly close. It wasn't a landslide by any means, but when a no-name comes from behind like that and takes it away from someone who's very well known, that puts some writing on the wall. And I think tomorrow in Washington there's going to be a lot of very worried Democrats talking about how they're going to get themselves from underneath this yoke of Obamacare, because it looks like the Republican Party have found something that they can really beat the Democrats on. By the way, and just I did find out some interesting background information, but Alex Sink, in the 2010 election, when she was running for governor, actually won this district quite comfortably against Rick Scott, who ended up being the governor. So for her to lose it now, not good at all. Now, was that because Alex Sink was bad? No, she's probably a pretty good Democratic, regressive type politician. So she should have, and all the money that was being pumped in, she should have done very well, but it just shows that when you're running against Obamacare, probably it makes it very, very difficult for all those regressives. So that gives us some hope for the midterms coming up, and let's hope we just continue to stress to people how bad Obamacare is. And we'll see. But as I said, it gives us hope for the future. Okay, well, while we're talking about politicians in Florida, again, regular listeners will know that my congressman in Florida used to be Alan Grayson. When I first started this radio show, I was campaigning very actively against Alan Grayson at the time. We managed to get Dan Webster in Alan Grayson's district, made him a one-term congressman. But of course, when they redistricted, Alan Grayson came back, and now and they of course moved me into the new district. So maybe that was the reason I decided to leave Florida. No, folks, it was for other reasons. But anyway, so Alan Grayson, who's really the biggest buffoon out, and I've met him personally a number of occasions, and I can vouch for everything that's bad about a politician is Alan Grayson. Well, it turns out, first of all, he was swindled out of $18 million, and it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. But he had to cash in a lot of investments that he had in corporations. And, of course, he has to list a lot of that information in his congressional transaction record. Now, it only has to give rough number ranges. They don't have to give exact numbers. But it looks like the sale of the stock in 7 different corporations netted him almost $2 million. So this is no poor puppy. So, he's a Democrat, but he's got lots of money. Well, you will not believe what kind of companies he was investing in, because although he didn't say how much he'd invested, but he did indicate how much he'd made on those investments when he cashed them in. But you will not believe the sort of companies in which he was investing. And this is just typical of regressives, hypocritical to the teeth, and Alan Grayson is no different to any of the others. If anything, he's worse. And of course, he's also been investigated for wife-beating charges. But we're not even going to talk about that. Okay, folks, time for the next break. After the break, I'm going to tell you about Alan Grayson's investments, because you really will not believe what I'm going to be telling you.
Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification require cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing, and other restrictions apply. If you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Only Dish brings you the best in entertainment for less than $20 a month. Cut the cable and don't get directed. Switch to Dish, because at just $19.99, Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. It's so simple. The same channels cost less with Dish. So since you can't see the difference, don't pay the difference. Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Get premium movie channels free for 3 months, starting at just $19.99. Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. Call now to save with Dish. Dial 1-800-865-5017. That's 1-800-865-5017. The same channels for less than $20 a month. Dish. Call 1-800-865-5017 for details.
Why spend more than you have to on your life insurance? Did you know that term life insurance rates have fallen over 60% in the last 15 years? At the Life Insurance Quote Line, we monitor the rates, features, and financial strength of hundreds of life insurance products. For example, a healthy 40-year-old can protect his family with $500,000 of 10-year level term for less than $20 a month. Rates for women are even lower. And don't forget to ask us about the new term life policies that guarantee your money back even if you don't die. Since 1986, we've helped tens of thousands of people just like you save a fortune on their life insurance. Why not find out how much you can save? Write down this number and call today for your free quote. 1 5-minute call is all it takes. Call 800-915-9734. 800-915-9734. That's 800-915-9734. Rates, policy forms, and availability vary by state.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And thanks for sticking with me through that break. If you've forgotten who I am, here's just a quick reminder.
Patriot come lately. British by birth. American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.
And if you have any comments or questions about the show, if you're listening live, you can do that in the chat room. Click on the green speech bubble down at the bottom right-hand part of the screen. If you're listening to a recording or any of the rebroadcasts, for example, via Red State Talk Radio Network, or now also via KTFL 1620 AM in the Phoenix area, then do send me an email with your
at patriotcomelately.us, or go to the show's website www.patriotcomelately.us and click on the contact button. You can also write your comments on the show's Facebook page. Just search in Facebook for the Patriot Come Lately Show.
And so that's how you can get hold of me. Give me those messages. Anyway, so back So very few jobs. In other words, all that money that dear Alan Disgrayson was investing was starting jobs in Russia, but not in America. The second of his investments was a company called is a company called Petrobras, who I've mentioned. That's one that George Soros invests in, right? And they invest heavily in offshore drilling, something which Alan Disgrayson, surprise, surprise, as a regressive, claims to be vehemently opposed to. And so that one also garnered him between $250,000 and $500,000, so between $250,000 and $500,000. Now, of course, what's interesting with that is that this is probably the capital gains that he had on there. How much money did he actually have invested? Now, on his official campaign website, Grayson clearly stated that he believes that offshore drilling in Florida poses a tremendous risk to the environment. But he invests in a company that does it in Brazil, and not just in Brazil. Petrobras also drills in the Gulf of Mexico, in international waters. Right now, he's taken it off his, he's taken off of his campaign website. But you can, if you go to one of the Go Back sites, he said the Arctic refuge and other coastal waters and other vulnerable areas should also be protected from greedy energy companies. And how about greedy congressmen and lawyers who pretend not to like oil companies but invest in them anyway? So, and believe it or not, at one time, Disgrayson actually went as far as to propose that the government should just track down every single person who said drill, baby, drill, and put them all in prison. Well, invest, baby, invest. Maybe we should put you in prison. Now, there's lots of other reasons why he should be in prison anyway. But again, isn't that just typical hypocrisy of our friends on the left? Well, and it doesn't end there. So some of his investments were in precious metals. Precious metals, rather than precious metals themselves, he was investing in precious metal mines, gold mines and silver mines. Right? One of them was the Timmins gold mine. And according to the website of the Timmins company, the company owns and operates the open pit heap leach San Francisco gold mine in Sonora State, Mexico. Well, believe me, if there's one kind of mining that's not good for the environment, it's open pit heap leach type mining. But apart from that, not only that, Timmins Gold has the stated objectives of respecting the land, water and air and the areas adjacent to our work. We act positively to help the communities near our operations in addition to local hiring. In other words, Mr. Disgrayson is investing money in companies that do not provide American jobs. They provide jobs to other people. Another one, Endeavour Silver, a Canadian corporation based in Vancouver. Oh, so you're sending your money abroad? Can you remember the left was all over Mitt Romney for his investments abroad, although they were in a blind trust? But our dear friend Mr. Disgrayson invests in a Canadian corporation that also operates 3 high-grade underground silver mines in Mexico. The Endeavour Silver Company proudly states our commitment to local hiring injects money into local economies. It also contributes to local and national prosperity in Mexico. Well, muchas gracias, mi amigo, Senor Disgrayson. Thank you for supporting Mexico. Now, this Silver Endeavour actually made it even worse. They said we had 2 options. We could bring in an American company to restore the mine when they took over the one of the mines. which would mean laying off all 273 local employees, or we could bring in a consulting group to train the existing employees on this work, allowing them to retain their jobs and learn new skills. In other words, yes, Mexicans are getting Disgrayson's money for their jobs, and he's not investing here. Now, Grayson is a great supporter of Greenpeace, and he is actually going to be facing a Democrat primary challenger, thank goodness, from a college professor. Of course, he's going to win that primary. He's got so much money. And he will face off against whoever wins the Republican primary. Right now, it seems to be probably Jorge Bonilla. But he also has to get through the primary, but he is definitely the favorite to win that. So now Bonilla has definitely been a thorn in Grayson's side, and he's been relentlessly criticizing and taking him to task on all of these socialist-leaning positions. And of course, Grayson's over-the-top and divisive rhetoric, but on top of that now, he'll have plenty of ammunition to hit dear Disgrayson with. Right now, Disgrayson boasts about being a long-time member of groups like the Sierra Club, Conservation Voters, the Nature Conservancy, and a few others. I wonder if he's going to get booted out of those groups for all of these investments that he had. And by the way, while we talk about the primary, this just a shout out for my friends at the Celebration GOP, even though I've moved out of Celebration. If you're in the Central Florida area, Thursday evening they have a candidate forum with Peter Vivaldi addressing the meeting. It's going to be at Heritage Hall this Thursday, 13th of March at 7 p.m. And they will, in April, be having a candidate forum where all three candidates will be speaking, including Jorge Bonilla, and you can go there and find out whether Jorge is the guy for you or one of the other ones is the one for which you want to vote. Okay, folks, how are we doing for time? We've got a little bit of time to start on the next topic, so let's do that. Yes, new topic. And the next topic here, folks, a new oversight committee report is claiming that Lois Lerner actually misled Congress about the IRS targeting. Now, this report has just been released, and it's an extensive report and shows that Lois Lerner actually lied to Congress about her involvement in the targeting of conservative groups seeking tax-exempt status. They have detailed evidence about steps she took to crack down on organizations that exercise their constitutional rights to free political speech, according to the Oversight and Government Reform Committee chairman, who is, of course, Darrell Issa. It is a 141-page report. Very, very detailed. Now, of course, they're deciding whether or not they're going to vote on holding Lerner in contempt of Congress for her pleading the Fifth yet again, because they all say she waived them by reading a statement proclaiming her innocence. I'm not a lawyer, so you tell me whether or not that thing. And also this report doesn't even include any of the emails that the IRS is going to be turning over to the House Ways and Means Committee. But anyway, they had enough material to determine that she definitely misled Congress. So here's another thing that we need to be aware of. Here are the findings in the report. Lerner, in emails to other IRS officials, wrote about ways to highlight the agency's scrutiny of Tea Party applicants, despite secrecy laws, by provoking groups to challenge IRS rulings in a court case. In other words, she's telling the opposition to the Tea Party, take them to court. She called for a Washington, D.C.-based multi-tier review for Tea Party groups. And a D.C. IRS employee said this level of scrutiny had no precedent. She references the fabulously rich and hugely influential Koch brothers. Well, in a couple of shows ago I said they're sort of about number 19 on the list. She broke IRS rules using her personal email account. she expressed concern that the Supreme Court ruling leading to the increase of 501c4 tax-exempt groups would hurt Democratic senators seeking re-election in 2012. Yeah, it did, but not enough, because she and the IRS did their damnedest to make sure that that they would do what they can to stop these Tea Party groups. And she wrote that the IRS was expected to fix the problem. The quote that is in the report says, "The Supreme Court dealt a huge blow, overturning a 100-year-old precedent that basically corporations couldn't give directly to political campaigns, and everyone is up in arms because they don't like it. The Federal Election Commission can't do anything about it. They want the IRS to fix the problem." Well, who is the they? The DNCC, the Democratic National Congressional Committee, or the DNSC, or whatever they're called, the Senate, or even the White House? They? Who are they that don't want this? Okay, folks, time for the last commercial break, and then I will be back with some more news right after these messages.
Are you at least 62 years old like me? Could you use an extra $50,000, $100,000 or more to live a better life? Then please consider the benefits a reverse mortgage can provide to you. With a reverse mortgage, you can have your mortgage payments stopped altogether and get equity out of your home to live on. And you can use the money to help you live a better life. How nice would that be, not to have a mortgage payment? Qualifying for a reverse mortgage is simple, since there are no income, asset, employment, or credit requirements. However, you must be 62 years or older, own your home outright, or have a very low balance on the mortgage, and be prepared to live in it throughout the rest of the loan. Call now for more information.
800-704-1662. 800-704-1662. 800-704-1662. That's 800-704-1662.
I will never forget the day my son Jeremy told me he hated me and slammed the door in my face. I'm behavioral therapist Janet Lehman. Behavior problems can turn the child you love and your life into a nightmare. That's why my husband James and I created the Total Transformation, the step-by-step program that shows you how to fix the worst behavior problems and get your child to respect and listen to you again. No matter what the behavior, defiance, backtalk, angry outbursts.
The whole economics of everything. The GOP said, given these dismal enrollment numbers, the president needs to work with Congress to get rid of the of this year's individual mandate penalty, because so many people aren't signed up. But what's even worse with these low numbers, the actual goal of enrolling young adults into the system, they wanted to have, of the 7 million that was supposed to be enrolled, 40% was supposed to be between 18 and 34. And now that we've got less than that 7 million, let's say a little bit over half, but only a quarter of those are actually in that age group. So that means instead of, they were hoping for 40%, that's about 2.8 million of those people would be young, healthy people who are going to pay for everybody else, in effect. Let's see, a quarter of 4.2 million, it's about 1 million. So about half the number of young people that they were expecting have actually signed up. Well, folks, that is very, very bad for them, but very good, of course, for us. But it shows how unstable and how useless Obamacare is. Now, lawmakers are saying that the numbers are still confusing, and I think they are. The regime has reported the number of sign-ups. It's not saying how many of those individuals have paid their premiums. So that number of 4.2 million could also be significantly lower. There are figures as high as 30% haven't actually paid anything. And furthermore, they're not saying how many of those people that are enrolling through the Obamacare exchanges were previously uninsured, and that's a key one. Remember, when this thing was forced down our throat, we were told we have to do this for all the uninsured people, and that number varied from 15 to 30, and I've got a number here now. They're even saying as high as 47 million people that were uninsured. But a recently released study shows that many of those 47 million uninsured are not bothering to sign up. It shows that of the uninsured eligible to sign up for Obamacare's private plan, just 10% said they had done it. Just 10%, folks. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. Furthermore, it found out that only a quarter of those that did sign up on these Obamacare exchanges, that did sign up for the coverage there, that only a quarter of them were previously uninsured. So they're just really absolutely not reaching their targets, their goals or anything. In other words, it is a huge disaster, and it's one that we're going to end up paying for. Well, folks, we've reached the end of the show. Once again, a shout out to the new listeners, KTFL 1620 AM in the Phoenix area. Do drop me an email. Let me know how the signal's coming across, whether you like the show. It's been great listening. Join me again next week for more news and views. We'll see what's going on in the world of politics. Thanks for joining me, and ta-ta for now. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Patriot Come Lately Show. Please take what you have learned and share it with friends and family. Better still, tell them about the show so they can listen too. Remember to support the advertisers on the show. It helps keep this show on the air, and I thank you for that. I'm looking forward to joining you on the next show. Until then, keep spreading our message. Goodbye, and God bless America.
Patriot come lately. British by birth, American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.